handle the truth.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
You have offended my family.
Hey, this is great, man.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
I know nothing.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
We don't need no stinking budget.
Homosexuality, immorality in general.
How in the century you have slurred the meaning of the words we, the people.
Be warned, this is not your mother's marijuana.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Well, you may have read the news that Privateer Holdings has entered into a marketing agreement with the estate of Bob Marley to begin marketing Marley Natural Marijuana. The marijuana will be a premium cannabis brand rooted in the life and legacy of Bob Marley, according to Privateer's CEO. And we have a little video to show you that they are using for their endorsement push. Let's take a look at that. We'll talk a little bit more about CEO Brendan Kennedy.
Bob Marley and marijuana are unequivocally linked, from the late pop star's songs and videos to his non-stop advocacy for legalization. Now, even in death, Marley's image will once again be attached to the herb.
He advocates for the positive power of the herb.
Marley Naturals, the first ever global marijuana brand, and fittingly, the face of the product is one of its most famous fans. The Marley estate has agreed to a deal with Privateer Holdings, a marijuana-focused private equity firm, to, quote, unveil a cannabis brand based on Bob's life and legacy. The terms of the deal were not released. This firm pushing Marley Naturals had quite a year, raising $50 million in equity financing and opening a $20 million, 60,000 square foot grow facility on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. Charged with presenting a different image for the stoner's drug of choice is Heckler Associates. And while you might not recognize their name, you definitely have heard of their other clients: Microsoft, New Balance, and Starbucks, just to name a few. The launch of Marley Natural comes during a time when cannabis is experiencing rapid growth across the country. Recreational weed was just legalized last month in Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C., joining Washington State and Colorado. According to ArcView Research, legal marijuana sales topped $1.42 billion in 2013 and is expected to grow by 64% to $2.34 billion in 2014. With federal marijuana laws still unchanged, Marley Natural could face legal trouble trying to move pot from Canada into the U.S.
There's so many hurdles facing this, I don't know where to begin. First of all, it's illegal on a federal level in the U.S., so you cannot move it from state to state.
But the company seems unfazed and says you can expect to see their products on store shelves, well, at least where it's legal, by late 2015. For Newsy, I'm Jamal Andrus.
So Marley Natural is the brand being pushed by Privateer Holdings, the people that are behind Leafly, leaf.ly, if you know the very well-known cannabis finding app, I guess it is. So I just thought I would put the logo up here so we could talk a little bit about this branding of Marley Natural, because the man behind it, CEO Brendan Kennedy, the CEO of Privateer, spoke respectfully of the late Rastafarian reggae artist Bob Marley, saying, quote, "This is what the end of Prohibition looks like. Bob Marley started to push for legalization more than 50 years ago. We're going to help him finish it," end quote. It's fascinating how the prospect of cashing in on Bob Marley and the devotion of his fans can change a CEO's perspective. As Kennedy explained to NBC News, quote, "The American cannabis industry is about a $50 billion industry," end quote. Because it wasn't too long ago that Kennedy was disrespecting stoners and their culture, Bob Marley in particular, in every mainstream interview he could. As soon as marijuana was legalized in Washington state, web entrepreneur Brendan Kennedy was profiled by Washington's KUOW as, quote, "the former COO, an MBA from Yale, and 6-time Ironman triathlete who left a successful job in the banking industry to start Leafly.com," end quote. Just the kind of person who might harbor some prejudices against stoners, perhaps? In November 2012, Kennedy told KUOW stoners are, quote, not elevating the conversation. They're perpetuating the negative stereotype. They are their own worst enemy. End quote. Okay, I see. Stoner culture perpetuates a negative stereotype. Go on. By February 2013, Oregon Public Broadcasting reported on Washington marijuana legalization draws Yale MBAs with big ideas. Kennedy was explaining how the $7 million in stock offerings for Privateer was enough to, as OPB puts it, quote, put some mainstream brands that don't conjure images of stoners or hippies or hip-hop artists. And as Kennedy said, quote, every brand doesn't need to focus on the Grateful Dead or Snoop Dogg or Willie Nelson. It just doesn't need to be that way, end quote. The story continues by explaining that Kennedy is, quote, targeting what he calls the connoisseur recreational user, end quote. Okay, I see. Stoner culture icons like the Grateful Dead, Snoop Dogg, and Willie Nelson wouldn't appeal to connoisseur recreational marijuana consumers, just stoners. Go on. In May 2013, the story of Medbox, the marijuana vending machine, was covered by Bloomberg Businessweek. It described Privateer's Leafly as, quote, a sort of Yelp for dope, end quote. And Kennedy explained how he wants, quote, no puns, no pictures of pot leaves, or giant joints, or none of the negative stereotypes. I see. Using giant pot leaves in one's branding would be a negative stoner stereotype. Go on. In June 2013, the New York Times was covering Kennedy for a, quote, how to invest in dope, end quote, story. Interestingly, in the New York Times' URL, it's how to succeed in the legal pot business. Somebody changed the title to how to invest in dope. And again, the story of how Privateer acquired Leafly is revealed, with the Times reporting, quote, a big part of the site's appeal was that it wasn't already branded with symbols of pot culture, end quote. Kennedy explained that, quote, it didn't have any of the old cliches. The site wasn't plastered with pot leaves or pictures of Bob Marley, end quote. I see. Plastering your brand with pot leaves and pictures of Bob Marley is an old pot culture cliche. Go on. In August 2014, Privateer had invested in Arbor, Maine, a firm handling warehouse leasing for the legal pot grows in Washington state. According to the Kitsap Sun, quote, the CEO says he hopes Arbor, Maine's professional atmosphere will elevate the conversation surrounding the marijuana business by doing away with cannabis culture's stoner stigma. These stereotypes, Kennedy said, quote, are insulting to the people who consume the product. We are tired of the cliches. Every brand doesn't have to use the color green or have leaves plastered all over it. Not every brand needs to look like the Grateful Dead or Cheech and Chong. There is an opportunity for professional people in this industry. End quote. I see. Plastering green pot leaves all over your brand is insulting to the pot consumers. Okay. So, Brendan Kennedy, would you like to explain how using the image and the legend of Bob Marley to sell marijuana to connoisseurs and professional people with a logo festooned with green pot leaves and the reggae lion is suddenly not a negative stereotype, is suddenly not insulting to the people who consume, and suddenly not a stoner cliche? As Tony Ducapil writes for NBC News, quote, Kennedy sees no reason for worry. He used to think Bob Marley was a drag on the pot industry, a Cheech-like stoner whose audience was limited to college kids in duct-taped beanbag chairs. He was wrong, he said. Now he's trying to build a brand that captures the real Marley, less a party animal than a philosopher, a person hungry to connect with the world, not retreat from it. The deal took him 18 months to develop, but when it closed last summer, he celebrated with a song. 3 little birds, which he played at dinner time, his infant daughter cooing to the tune. End quote. Amazing how much Brendan Kennedy's opinion of Bob Marley has changed when there is millions of dollars to be made on the stoner culture. As Robert Nesta Marley once said, quote, "The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively." End quote.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of The Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio. At Royal Queen Seeds, we've got premium feminized cannabis seeds, including auto-flowering varieties for the medical cannabis user. We've got bulk shipments available and new CBD oil. Plus, we accept payment in Visa, MasterCard, and Bitcoin, as well as other methods. Check out our website at royalqueenseeds.com for more information. We are located in the Netherlands, and we have online grow experts ready to help you now at royalqueenseeds.com. Marijuana legalization also ushers in the return of the American hemp industry. Get the latest news from the author of Hempbound and Too High to Fail, Doug Fine, in our Hemp Day Hump Day update.
Welcome back, everybody. 45 after the hour, and we're trying to reach Doug Fine, who is in Albuquerque attending some event, I understand, and we're unable to get him on the phone again. We will try again on another day after the Thanksgiving holiday. See if we can get Doug Fine, author of Hempbound and Too High to Fail. I apologize, folks. I know we promoted this all week and all day long. We will have Doug on the show very soon, so stay tuned for that. All right. Want to go back to this radical rant that I just finished up on this Leafly CEO. Now, I appreciate the idea that Bob Marley was more than just a stoner icon, right? That he was a philosopher, that he was an activist, that he tried to make real positive change in people's lives. I completely get that. But let us not allow these new MBA suit corporate types who are really good at making money but have no connection to the marijuana culture to sanitize and whitewash our heroes, our icons. Bob Marley smoked a pound of weed a week. You don't get much stonier than that, folks. And it's rare that you have an image that is so widely associated with marijuana, where just the picture of Bob Marley in any country gives you a pretty strong indication that you'll be able to get your hands on some marijuana. Few people have that sort of status. Willie Nelson maybe, Snoop Dogg maybe, but nowhere near as globally as does Bob Marley. And this is no diss on the Marley family. Hell, absolutely, man. Make money. I got no issue with that. I don't know, I'm not going to sit here and claim that how Bob Marley would have reacted to this. I saw some tweets of this go out, people asking, would Bob Marley have sold out? Hell, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. If the money's to be made and then that money can be redirected for good causes, feeding people in, Jamaica or something, sure. I'm not going to judge that. I have no problem with the people who, deservedly want to see Bob Marley's name associated with premium cannabis. Why not? Makes total sense. I wouldn't begrudge Snoop Dogg making his line or Willie Nelson making his line or anybody, right? That's great. Go ahead. And I'm really not so much begrudging Privateer for getting involved in this either. aside from this warning shot I want to fire across the bow of all of these corporate people, this goes back to the open vape thing. It's all well and good that you want to capitalize on legalization and make some money, but you need to have some respect for the culture and the people that made this industry legal, that went to prison, that lost friends and family and pets over this, and not denigrate us. Yes, there are many cannabis consumers who are like me, who are, short-haired, professional-looking, middle-class, square-looking, whatever you want to call it. But there are also many of us who are what people would call a stereotypical stoner. I think when you watch Herb Thrasher Flower Hour, you might say, there's Radical Russ and there's Herb Thrasher, and one of them looks more like a stoner. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. They're the people who've been associated with marijuana for the simple fact that they were able to be associated with marijuana, that their own personal expression made it possible for you to know that they were associated with marijuana. They're the people with true personal courage in this world. And then you want to have some Yale MBA triathlete who doesn't smoke weed come in and buy all this stuff and make it worse for us. It's just ridiculous. All right, let's go to our phone lines. We got a call from the 575 area code. You're on the air. Hello? Hello, 575. Okay. I think that's one of those message machine callback things. But this is troubling to me. This idea that these guys want to just jump in and use a brand, use a name, use an image, and had no problem trying to capitalize on that image. All right, let's try the phone again. Are you on the air? Can I hear you?
Hi.
Is this Doug?
Yes.
Doug?
Hello.
Hello, Doug.
Hi, Buck.
You're breaking up on me.
Sorry about that. I'm in a remote part here, but I'm ready to roll. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you okay. We were just hoping everything was fine and that you landed in New Mexico okay.
I did, in fact, just touched down not too long ago.
Right on. Well, tell folks what you're doing. We're speaking with Doug Fine for our first somewhat delayed Hump Day update. Doug, of course, is the author of this fine book, Hemp Bound, the dispatches from the front lines of the next agricultural revolution. So, Doug, what's new in hemp, man?
Oh, my gosh. The most exciting thing, I'm just back from the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, Russ, and if I could just take a step back quickly and say that I just send props to you and this show because of how long ahead of the curve you've been. And as the victories are coming, the dominoes are falling, and the drug peace year is beginning, you've been documenting it all, and the Smithsonian is going to thank you one day.
Oh, I hope so.
But so in Canada, a bunch of researchers in Alberta found that if you take... Sorry, can you hear me all right?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. If you take 1 molecule thick carbon sheets made from hemp, they perform better at 1/1000th of the cost than the nanoparticles that have been previously used, which are kind of toxic. Which means to say that if we can get Elon Musk to put hemp-based door paneling in his Teslas, we can be charging them with hemp-based batteries, and a large part of our sustainability worries are solved. That's the really exciting news coming out of Canada today.
Wow. All right. So this is the replacement for graphene, if I remember correctly, and this could revolutionize battery technology by making it enormously cheaper and much more environmentally friendly.
That is absolutely correct, and that was just one of the exciting bits of information coming out of Canada. Their market curve is incredible. They are growing. I just shifted my headset here, so I hope you can still hear me. They are growing at 24% per year in Canada on their hemp seed oil market, which is going to pass $1 billion in value worldwide this year. And that's pretty amazing, too, because what that's telling farmers is that if you are suffering and not making a lot of money from the GMO, corn, wheat, soy cycle, you have another option here that's going to be making the money right 5 times as much per acre as those kind of big 3 crops are. So we're looking at something that makes economic sense and makes sense for the future of humanity, sustainability-wise.
So, Doug, was 2014 a good year for the Canadian hemp farmers?
Best year ever. I personally think it was the biggest year ever for hemp in general. We had our Farm Bill in February that included a provision that permits hemp cultivation for research purposes in states that have their own hemp legislation, and as long as the farmers are connected with either an institution of higher learning or an ag department. I hope to be involved in implementing those regulations in Oregon, and I just wrote the legislation for my own state in New Mexico along those lines. And some interesting news along those lines is some folks are understandably kind of frustrated that only research purposes were authorized, but the state of Kentucky, which is, not a liberal state, its state agriculture department is interpreting that to mean you could do sales and market research as well, which in bottom line terms, Kentucky farmers are selling their harvest. So I'm not quite sure how that's different from commercial cultivation, but I'm into it. Sounds good.
It's one of those this pipe is for tobacco use only type of things.
Right.
Hey, we got some questions coming in. Folks wanted to know on that Canadian production, how much of the percentage of that, if you know, is for seed oil?
Almost all of it. In fact, in the talk that I gave, I was nudging the Canadians to really start doing something with their fiber, because today they're burning it in the field, and they acknowledge that that's not the right way to go. First of all, props to the Canadians, okay? They started this modern industry back up in 1998. They had genetically modified hemp banned right from the beginning, which is fantastic. Whatever your views on genetically modified foods, it has no role in the hemp brand, and it's unnecessary. So they're almost exclusively growing for seed, but they're starting to think about oil. And that's really interesting to me, because as I travel around the world, I was talking about hemp. I went to Europe recently, and the European producers are being dragged kicking and screaming into doing seed oil because they see the bottom line now in Canada, and just because they're used to doing fiber. China does a little bit of both, but it's really amazing to me the fact that you have these viable parts of the plants and they're not being fully utilized. But hey, I look at that as a business opportunity for Oregonian and all around American farmers as well to really take advantage of what we can see from looking around the rest of the world. There's just so much growth and so much marketing opportunity. Sometimes I think just personally from the shake, the hemp seed oil that I put in my own morning shake, I think that's personally floating the market.
Hey, do you have a number for bushels per acre on the seed production out there?
I do have a number on the amount of acreage growth. I know it's growing 24% per year, and it went up to, I might even have it in front of me. I'm pretty sure. Bear with me. The Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance's figures on the amount of acreage cultivated this year. Oh darn, no, I don't. I packed it in my other bag. But so I'll have to get back to you on the exact acreage. But the reality of it is, in the heartland provinces of Canada, in the Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, it's growing hugely. It's practically, double digits every year, but it's also still a niche crop. So in other words, as the demand grows, there's plenty of room for American farmers. One example of that is one of the largest processors of the seed oil in Canada, Sean Crew. And for listeners who don't know, I'm sure most do, that it's an omega-balanced superfood. It really, truly has the ideal ratio between those omega-6s and omega-3s as well. But the seed processor, Sean Koo of Hemp Oil Canada, told me in an interview 2 years ago when I was interviewing for what became HempBound that the minute hemp cultivation becomes legal in the U.S., he's going to parachute into the U.S. because he can't keep up with demand based on what Canadian farmers are doing. And he put his money where his mouth is, and he is investing, and there is now a Hemp Oil Kentucky where he is buying seed oil from Kentucky farmers starting next harvest season. Two other quick points I wanted to make that are important on the hemp front at this moment. One is, pending in Congress right now is S359, it's full commercial legalization of hemp. It removes all cannabis with 0.3% of THC or less from the Controlled Substances Act and puts it under the purview of the Department of Agriculture, where it belongs, like every other agricultural crop. That is in Congress now, and it has momentum. Mitch McConnell is now the leader of the Senate. He's a Kentucky Republican. He's a big hempster. And on the Democratic side, Oregon's own Earl Blumenauer came straight from his own victory party to the Measure 91 victory party. Oregon, he stepped on the stage and practically the first words out of his mouth were, this is a mandate. This is double-digit victory here in Oregon. I'm going to push hemp this session, or late that session in Congress. So don't be surprised to see full commercial legalization of hemp this congressional session.
Oh, man, that looks awesome. Hey, Doug, we got to wind things up here for the first hour, but can you give us 5 minutes on the next hour when we come back?
Russ, the more time I can spend with you, the better.
All right, we'll be right back after we finish up this hour, but thanks for joining us, folks, here on the Russ Belville Show. We will be back with Doug Fine at the top of the next hour. Also, we've got our Daily Toker Tunes for the day with Gordon Green and a song from Vivian featuring Overdose, a song called Legalize It. Plus, more discussion of the Marley Natural brand that's coming out, Privateer Holdings. Boy, I got a few more things to say about that. Plus, we'll take your calls at 971-533-7111. For everyone here at 420 Radio, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you